All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And thank you so very much for being here for what will be a Friday show. This is sort of the end of the week. We wrap up a lot of stuff. I'm on location in Washington, D.C., closer to your tax dollars. We're only miles away from the great military-industrial complex, everyone. Surrounded by lobbyists. I'm in the warm arms of a corrupt judicial system. It's everywhere, and it is such a delight to be in Washington, D.C. I love it. I grew up here. I went to school with a lot of people whose fathers and mothers were working in government, and it is cool to be here. It's a better city now than when I was growing up. It is filled now with an international quality that it just didn't have when I was growing up here, and it's also it's just a more beautiful city. There are many more upscale restaurants and upscale museums and just a number of things to do that, frankly, are on a higher level than when I was growing up here. And I'm sure that's because of all the lobby money that's come into the city of Washington and the surrounding suburbs. But regardless, from here, we will do a lot today, and there is a lot going on. Also, I'll share a personal note with you for just a moment. So. I am with my mother. As you know, my mom is 94, which is a very good age. It's just when you're beginning to get your life together. You're just beginning to get a sense of what the future might hold for you. And so my mom's got big plans. And of course, my dad just died a couple of, 2.5 months ago now, or something along those lines. And so we're all rallying around my mom, and that's one of the reasons that I am here. Just finished a visit with her. Before this show came out, I worked on the show this morning. You know, obviously we're on Eastern time, so I'm able to do that, then run out to see my sister and my niece and my mom, and etc. So my mom last night went to a Chinese restaurant with us, and it was a place that we used to go with my dad, and we'd go with the whole family, and we get one of those big round tables, and it's a really nice place. And I sent Albert a picture of my mother with the dude who, there's my mom on the right, and that is the dude who runs the restaurant, and there he is on the left, and he came out to see my mother, and he said, boy, we haven't seen you in a long time, and they kind of had a nice little visit, and then he went back behind, and so then when we got up to leave, he came back out. That's when this picture was taken. And he again made a big deal out of my mom. My mom said, I'm 94. And he said, I'm 66. And she said, oh my gosh, you're just a kid, whatever. And then we went out to the street, and I was going to bring the car around to mom. So mom's there on the street, and she's there with Courtney, and they're waiting for the car. And he comes back out onto the street with this big gong that they have in the Chinese restaurant. And he hits the gong and makes it. It was very funny. And I thought really special because clearly he connected with my mom, or he remembered her because the family used to go there so frequently. So it was a really special moment. And it was preceded, this moment was, by some, I'm going to say, some fairly significant news. And Albert, if you could show them my fortune cookie, everyone will get an idea of what I mean, because it says Friday, which is today.
Yeah.
I got this last night. Friday will bring you the breakthrough you've been waiting for. Yeah.
What breakthrough have you been waiting for exactly?
I don't know. And sometimes you don't know it till it's broken through, Kim. That's the thing that I've learned. You can be waiting for your breakthrough and not even realize it.
Kim, how are you?
So the idea is that I'm waiting, I'm receiving, and I'm counting on a big breakthrough today. And I have to say something. If it happens during the show, I will let you know. Albert, I'll let you know first, probably.
Albert, thank you.
Because you are the producer, and then I'll let Kim know.
Kim, how are you?
All right. So that is the situation as far as what you can expect personally. And Ricky, that is our major announcement. You know, it would be a major announcement if I get my breakthrough. So there's that. Now, looks to me like I've lost. Is Kim frozen out, Albert? Are we all frozen out? What's happening on the? Oh, no, you were just looking down. Gosh, that's a really great thing, Kim. You've got a look down that looks as though you're completely frozen. That's it. Exactly. Very well done. Wow. That's insane. That's really great. At the end of those 70s sitcoms and dramas, they used to freeze frame everything. Mm-hmm. That was like the move, the freeze frame. They don't do that anymore. That was just it's kind of a... Did anybody watch the Oprah sit-down last night?
I saw
Did you
parts
watch
of
it, Kim?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had it up live, but I ended up talking to you instead of watching it.
Yeah, we did a Michael Shure thing together, yeah.
So I couldn't watch the whole thing, but from what I saw, it was her reiterating. It was kind of like, I don't want to liken it to this exactly because it was a lot better. Mm-hmm. But you know how the other day you said with Elon Musk, it wasn't really an interview? Right. It was kind of more of a love fest. That's what this was. I mean, Oprah wasn't sitting down for a gotcha interview. Sure. You know, she wasn't pulling out, extracting information. She was giving Kamala Harris the chance to reiterate all of her campaign slogans. You know, when the best leaders don't push people down, they lift them up. You know, to reiterate all of her economic proposals. So it was good. And there were some things that she had said that she hadn't said before. There were some questions from people, but they were all set up ahead of time. You know, it wasn't anything spontaneous or anything she didn't prepare for. So, but it was good.
It was very good and heartening, and those stories were hard, says Audrey. Oprah old school, says Uncle Russ. Taylor Swift has more clout. Uncle Russ feels that, yeah, Oprah's so yesterday. Let's get Taylor in. Yeah. Someone was in tears. Gordon was in tears from the people sharing their awful news. There
were a lot of stories about people suffering. I think he may be referring to the abortion stories, the reproductive health stories, where people talked about, you know, their experiences. So, yeah.
Old Seer reminds us of the important things. Each day, Old Seer says, each day you wake up is an ongoing adventure of your past's future.
Oh, that's a fortune.
Where's my Oprah what when I need it, Albert?
What?
Maybe. Yeah, that's a way to say it. Hey, Spencer, thank you for always being first into the super sticker game with a $3 super sticker. And I'll give you a big shout out. By the way, I got an email from someone saying, did I mention this the other day that
I've received a lot of positive letters.
This was, if you will stop doing the big shout out, I will make a contribution to the show. That's really rough. Not only am I not going to stop the big shout out, but I'm going to give, even Bill Clinton feels unwelcome in the new left, says Chris. Well, Chris, who is the mayor of Trollville, we always wait for something that, you know, might make sense. I don't know what the new left is, but if you're describing what's happening on the Democratic side of things, I think it is fair to say that there's the extreme left, there's the moderate centrist left, and then there are the centrists. In your party, the Republicans, I think there is the neo-fascist side. They're the Christian fascists, right? Religious fascists. They want a theocracy, right? Then they're just the fascists. And then you have the old school GOP, which just want to privatize everything. It's all about money. And it's essentially about, in that privatization, grabbing all the money for corporate interests and then tax cuts that protect those corporate interests. So that's pretty much where you are on the GOP side. So both sides, I would say, Mayor of Trollville, both sides have parts of their parties that neither one of the mainstream aspects of the parties might be good with. So, I mean, that's my attempt to spin what I think you were just kind of trolling with to something substantive. Thank you. I'll take my my applause off the air. Fiverr Friday from Harry Magnan. $5. Spencer's always first. He's 3 hours ahead. Oh, I see. I didn't realize he was ahead. But I love that you're Harry, you are a tried and true supporter. And Lucy McAllister, wow. I'm
my
loving
favorite McAllister.
my favorite
blah,
McAllister.
blah, blah.
Yep. I mean, I don't mean to make
You
a
know
big
who I
issue.
am?
It's
I'm
not
kind
a
of a big deal.
competition, Kim. Yeah, it's not a competition between McAllisters, please.
Oh, it is. It's own.
Well, I would say this. I'd say first, it's not a competition. And if it is a competition, then Lucy McAllister is the winner.
Albert, thank you.
Yes.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to Lucy. Yeah.
Set myself up for that one.
We love
Thank you so much.
our Lucy McAllister.
We do.
I
It's
only wish
true.
I had more time to describe all the ways that we love her. But thank you, Lucy, for the $20 super sticker. So I want to mention a couple things that are happening today, and then I'll get into the major breaking news. There's huge news out of Georgia and North Carolina. Georgia in relation to the election, North Carolina in relation to the race for the governorship, and that also pertains to the election. Randy says, I see that Georgia election. Yeah, I'll get to that. Geez, guys, I just don't rush me on the.
It was pertinent.
It was pertinent, but I'm making a. Albert, explain to Kim the problem with it. Explain it to her.
Kim, how are you?
The problem is I began.
No problem.
I teased the fact that I would get to it, and then I said I was going to tell you what's coming up, and then you put that up there, and it throws me off.
Oh, sorry. You're easily shaken. Wow.
Well, I'm just thinking that you're deliberately shaking me because you want, when I host the show, for it not to go as smoothly. Do you think that?
Is that what's happening?
I think that might be. I mean, yeah. Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't.
And I also want to know what happened to the picture I was supposed to see this week.
That's right. They do it to me all the time.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
All right. Do you want me to discuss it now and not tell you what's coming up on the show, Kim? Is that why you put that up there?
Cranky Charcoal says you're doing the weave.
Unbelievable, Cranky. Do you know what I'm up against here on a Friday? I have a lot of substantive stuff. And my own partner in the show is standing in my way. Whoever is producing this, thank you, Ricky O'Bear. Well, we'll start with Georgia. Kim, you're so hot to trot to talk about Georgia. Why don't you tell everybody what's happening?
Well, the fine people at the what do they call it? The voting
election board,
panel,
Georgia
the election board. Thank you very much. Maybe you should do it. They have decided that they're going to hand count every ballot in the state of Georgia on election night. Yikes. It was a vote 3-2 on the election board. There are 3 Trump allies who supported this new rule that will require counties to hand count the number of ballots cast at polling places on election day. So there were partisan objections from election officials, from poll workers, and bipartisan objections, I should say. And they decided to do it anyway.
Yeah,
it's going to be a mess.
Again, the board 3-2, right? They have the majority, and these are people who were by name lauded by Donald Trump on the stump in Georgia, the people who voted for the hand count. Now, what will the hand count do? It'll slow down the results in Georgia, right? You've got to count every county by hand. So this is going to be a new rule that is going to require the number of paper ballots, not the number of votes, but the number of paper ballots to be counted at each polling place by 3 separate poll workers until all 3 counts are the same. If a scanner has more than 750 ballots inside at the end of the voting, the poll manager can apparently decide to begin the count the following day. So again, these are all things built into the system to delay it. Several county election officials who spoke out against the ruling during public comments. There was a public comment period, and as Kim just said, it was quite contentious, might be the word you want to use. Preceding this vote, there was this public comment. They warned that having to count the ballots by hand at polling places could delay the reporting of election night results. They also worried, and they mentioned this in these public comments, about putting an additional burden on poll workers who have already worked a long day. I mean, election day is very, very rough. So these are the concerns that are voiced before the Georgia State Election Board votes. They vote anyway, and they have approved this new rule that is going to require poll workers to count the number of paper ballots, and those counts will be made by hand. It's a net win for the Trump people, and again, as you follow the bouncing ball of Trump, he seems to win a lot of the stuff that sort of throws sand into the gears of the election process. Now, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. And in that spirit,
The Mark Thompson Show.
something else that is very Trump didn't break for him. And this could be big. In North Carolina, there's a lieutenant governor there, Mark Robinson. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the story, but I just want to give you a quick ramp up as to why this stink of Mark Robinson and his porn posts end up on Donald Trump potentially, and why this guy has a connection to Donald Trump that is immutable. I mean, he is super connected. And you know Trump's going to go, I don't know him so well, whatever Trump always says. But as you'll see, Trump not only knows him well, but Mark Robinson was handpicked by Donald Trump to make a move for the governorship in Georgia. So he is a MAGA hopeful. He is a MAGA designate. He is an extremist MAGA. I mean, even in the MAGA movement, this guy, Mark Robinson, is extreme. He's anti-LGBTQ, dirty, vile, he calls these things that are associated with LGBTQ and transgenderism. The things he has said in public remarks are so, essentially, they're consistent with a kind of Christian nationalism that it makes what happens next even more outrageous. Now, the revelations come in that he made dozens of intensely caustic comments.
That's a ding word.
Probably. I don't have my ding with me.
I mean, ding, that's good.
Yeah.
Caustic is perfect.
Yeah. He, despite this record, I mean, this is recent of anti-transgenderism, he talks about the fact on these various porn sites that he enjoys watching transgender porn. He begins to build a kind of profile of this guy on this porn website in the comments section that is A, at odds with his public image, and B, is very much consistent with a kind of opposite kink that he's into. Now, I should step out of this and just say this. I don't care about this, as you might imagine. I've said this before. I don't care what porn websites he's on. I don't care what kink he's into. I'm not the kink police. I'm not the porn police. It's fine. Do your thing, dude. I've got no problem with that. My problem is how you go after the LGBTQ community. You've gone after the Jewish community. You've said and you've celebrated a return of slavery, if it could happen. We'll get to it in just a second. Albert's got a package and you'll see it all. But the point is that these are the things you say as a public official, and these are the things that you have pursued legislatively as a public official. That's what makes this so outrageous. And so, yeah, I love that there is a stink on you now, Mark Robinson, and there should be a stink of hypocrisy, a stink of fraud. That's who you are. You're a hypocrite and a fraud, and you are connected to Donald Trump. You were handpicked by Donald Trump. That's the only reason you're in this race, Mark Robinson, and you know it. And were it not for Donald Trump, you'd just be another loudmouth who shows up at his rallies. Albert, run the package, please.
Poor.
This is not us. These are not our words, and this is not anything that is characteristic of me, nor has it ever been. The people here of North Carolina know I have been completely transparent about my history.
For more on this, we're joined by Colin Campbell. He's the Capitol Bureau Chief for North Carolina Public Radio. Colin, just help us understand some of the incendiary comments that Robinson, I should say, is accused of having made, because it appears to be outrageous.
Yeah, so these are comments posted by an account on the website called Nude Africa. This is from years before Robinson got into politics, but the account that CNN has identified as Robinson posted things like claiming that he's a black Nazi, calling for the reinstatement of slavery, admitting that he had at some point spied in locker rooms, watching women take showers, watched transgender pornography, various other things. It's a lot of things almost too sexually explicit to say on TV, alleged, and the CNN reporter was able to connect these based on a personal email account, some biographical information that the poster used, as well as some of the phrasing that was used in some of Robinson's own social media posts later on.
You mentioned a personal email account Robinson used. Help us understand how CNN made the connection between him and these comments, because, you know, one of the defenses might be that perhaps someone is posing as him. But as you just mentioned, these comments are from before he ran for office. So help us understand why CNN is so confident it is him.
Yeah, I think for these to be some kind of deep fake, you know, you'd somehow have to both poses him, but also poses him retroactively, made the way that it makes the post appear that they were actually been on the website since 2008, 2012. At that point, you were almost a decade before Mark Robinson entered politics. He was a factory worker that no one had heard of at that point in time. So they were able to sort of make that transition connection based on the email address he was using, some biographical information about his marriage, where he lived, you know, how old he was, in addition to this, using the same username on multiple other sites that Robinson had used. Obviously, he denies that this is actually him, but it's sort of hard to necessarily see what other evidence might be out there to sort of prove or disprove the CNN report.
Very good, Albert. That's enough. Thank you. I think one of the keys there is just to when, and you knew he was going to push back like this, Robinson says, this wasn't me, they took my account, etc. There was no motive really to take his account back when these began. And number two, the verbiage is so clearly the same verbiage that apparently he uses on his Facebook page and some many other posts on social media. And so it's really consistent with who he is. I think it feels very much like Anthony Weiner. You'll remember that story where he first said, no, my account was taken, and this picture isn't the one that I took. And then 2 days later, it was just so clear, based on any number of ways they technologically triangulated to him, that it was his stuff. And so you end up with it's not in dispute any longer whether or not it's him. That's where we're going to be. I think we're already there, but that's where I think everybody's going to be by Monday. So the reason this is of significance, so we're going to talk to Michael Shure in the second hour about this from an election standpoint, and we'll even give you another package. You'll actually hear more from him, and there's a little bit more in a report that we'll read in the second hour. But the reason this is of some significance is because, as I've said, this guy is handpicked by Donald Trump. So to the extent that he has Trump on him, Trump has Robinson on him. And it'll be interesting to see how they try to walk it back. He was pressured enormously. Yeah, that's the guy that is Martin Luther King on steroids. Jim Slayton points out that was one of the remarks that Donald Trump made. What you'll quickly find, I think, is that this party in North Carolina is going to try to backwalk this somehow and distance Trump anyway from the stink that is Mark Robinson. Mark Robinson was always viewed as a problem by the GOP. They didn't want Mark Robinson to run for the governorship. They absolutely did not. He's lieutenant governor, and they felt he was a problem guy. He shows up at Trump rallies. He kind of invites himself on stage. He is, in a way, insinuated himself onto the Trump campaign, and it worked. He ingratiated himself to Trump, and before you know it, Trump is singing his praises, as Jim Slayton has noted. Talks about him as a great orator, talks him as a better orator than Martin Luther King. And so his comments about Hitler, the Black Hitler, his anti-LGBTQ stuff, the anti-LGBTQ stuff can kind of be played in the Republican playbook for North Carolina. So all of a sudden, he begins to kind of occupy a gray area. But the reality is now he has come out as the very thing that the GOP was worried about, which is a huge embarrassment and a real problem. And so it will be interesting to see if it discourages people from coming to the polls who are GOP leaning. I saw in the comments that people are saying their friends in Georgia and family in Georgia, maybe you can find it, Albert or Kim, are saying that the Democrats dreamed this up as a way to smear him, and that they still are behind Mark Robinson. They're still going to vote for him, and they're going to vote for Trump. I mean, there's definitely going to be that. You know, there is nothing like the conviction, as I always say, around Trump. Everybody's got, there's a fervor around him. I always say, I wish for all of us the kind of love that in our lives that Donald Trump has in his life from those MAGA crazies. They love him, and they will, do anything for him. We should all have anyone in our life who feels that way. But that said, I do think there may be a chilling effect, and you only need a small chilling effect for the results in North Carolina, perhaps, to change. It certainly complicates life in North Carolina. So that's a huge, huge development. And as I say, go to whatever porn site you want, but then don't tell me about how porn is so bad, or tell me how, this world that you seem to have a lurid interest in is so awful. It's dirt. It's what degenerates do, etc. He said all of these things. He's not just an ordinary freak. He's a super freak, says John Slade. Yeah, he's a super freak, super freaky. Dude is creepy and crazy. I think at one point he claimed that there were shape-shifting reptilian aliens in government. Yes, I'm sorry, he is. I don't know about that, but he is he's a conspiracy theorist. He's an extreme MAGAite, so pretty much everything falls into his cauldron of weirdness. Pietro, Mark Robinson is straight Looney Tunes. He shouldn't be in charge of anything but himself. How he polls as high as he does is bizarro world. Thank you. So we all are in agreement on Mark Robinson. And now there are revelations, and we'll see how they play out. As I say, Michael Shure will be along in the second hour, and we run a package that kind of gives you a sense and a little bit more from Mark Robinson himself. No Contendo says, a black face to talk crazy about black folk. It's a GOP's dream. There's a reason why these types of people are embraced by the GOP. A puppet white supremacy. I think that really is a straight-up smart comment, No Contendo. Yes, of course. Reminds me a bit of, there's no shortage of it, but I saw someone in the chat mentioned Herschel Walker. The thing about Herschel Walker that was a good was, from a GOP standpoint, was that he was well known. He was a celebrity, and they were going to try to ride that celebrity right into the Senate. The bad thing about Herschel Walker, well, there was a lot of bad about Herschel Walker. I mean, he had all these secret kids everywhere. And once again, he's preaching family values, and he was preaching the word. And of course, he wasn't living the word. He was living the opposite of the word. So he had kids all over the place. There was some contention, as you'll recall, during the Herschel Walker thing, that he was behind on child payments, on child support, and on payments that he owed his many offspring. But the thing that really hurt Herschel Walker also is he was bad on the stump. He was, he was poor with the language. He was poor with he was a brilliant celebrity, great for photo ops, but he wasn't really good at continuing the politicking. And so this guy's better, okay? Robinson's better, but he's crazy. And so he says crazy stuff, and that has left him behind in this race in North Carolina. So he was likely going to lose. But now he's been embraced by Donald Trump so many times that becomes a part of this story. So really, that's where we are on that North Carolina story.
Does it ever hurt Trump? Yeah. Does it hurt Trump at all, this thing?
It might. I mean, I think the argument you're hearing, and I don't know if it's true, but the argument that you're hearing is it will suppress the GOP vote a little bit. It'll knock down the number of GOPers who go to the ballot box because they're just like, oh, our guy is, for governor, isn't a player. So why bother? I think that's really the way. Will the stink of Robinson actually get on Trump to the point that Trump feels he needs to apologize for another guy's behavior? No, of course not. He wouldn't even apologize for his own behavior, or even apologize for or explain away not making the proper decision in backing Robinson. I mean, Trump knows no apology. He is infallible, as we all know. The other thing, and it was Jared Kushner that said this apparently. I saw a quote from Jared Kushner, which was this, and I think this really makes sense. He said, "My father-in-law, Donald Trump, is like a tie-dye shirt. You can spill something on a tie-dye shirt and no one notices, and it only makes the tie-dye better." And he said, that's really what my father-in-law is. He's a tie-dye shirt, and all the scandal and stuff that is poured on him or sticks to him, it's okay, because it just changes the look of the shirt, but it doesn't ruin the look of the shirt. I thought, wow, that is actually really great way to describe the Trump candidacy. It is that tie-dye shirt.
Because the rest of us are all white T-shirts, you know? Everything shows. Mm-hmm.
Sure, exactly right. Sorry, I'll miss the show yesterday. Here's my expiation. Wow. Wes with a $10 super chat. Thank you very much. Everybody's really going for the ding words today. It's very impressive.
Wes is running that
so
Mark
much.
Thompson show.
Yeah.
Wes is running the Mark Thompson show fan discussion page. And after you mentioned it yesterday, like a lot of people joined. So the membership on that page is really up.
Oh, wow. That's extraordinary.
Facebook, yeah.
Well, that's very, very cool. Thank you, Wes. Big shout out. Yeah, I'm glad that that's working out. Rampage Radio SF to $5 super chat. Says, Mark, your description of a moderate is factually incorrect. We are either very conservative on items or very liberal on other items politically. Oh, okay. I'll go with that. So I don't really know what we're disagreeing about. I find that most people are, I don't know if I should say most people, but many people, you'll check the box with them on this, you'll check the box with them on that, and then, they'll say something and you go, what? I don't, it's so. So I don't know. You define moderate your own way, but I'm just center right, says Spencer Jaffe. Well, I'm just right, not RIGHT, but correct is the way I always think of myself. So big shout out to all of you. Thank you for being here. Smash the like button if you would, please. It helps us in the world of YouTube. So I didn't mean it's not the only story, but it's an important story. The Georgia hand count, I think, as we told you, is a huge story, and I think this story in North Carolina is pretty big too. Donald Trump, for his part, is on the stump, and he's making comments that are, I don't know. It's
The Mark Thompson Show.
Trump says that if he loses, the Jewish people would have a lot to do with it. Where's my Oprah what? When I need the Oprah what loaded for the next trip. Former President Trump's, thank you, Oprah. Former President Trump speaking. Where was he? He was, I believe he was at an event with...
he was at an anti-Semitic event.
Yeah, which it was, but with what's her name? Who owns the Adelson? Sheldon Adelson's wife. I think she was there as well. So you have an advocacy that's being pursued by Sheldon Adelson's wife. I'm sorry, I wish I could remember her name. And Trump somehow twists this thing, which is all about essentially combating anti-Semitism, and he turns it with what is an anti-Semitic trope. I mean, the idea somehow that if, the Jews don't support me, then they don't support the country. And there's a disloyalty that's implied there. It's really scary. So, and he also apparently made these comments, and these interviews have been published online. He gave a series of interviews to Sebastian Gorka, who's his guy. He now hosts a talk show, conservative talk show. He served with Trump. And in essence, Trump said that if the Jewish community doesn't vote for him, then they hate Israel, is what he said. And he said any Jewish person that votes for Democrats hates their religion. They hate everything about Israel, and they should be ashamed of themselves because Israel will be destroyed, he says. And it's interesting that he finds this to be a wedge issue because the spreading of this kind of toxic, I would consider it anti-Semitic type stuff, is very much the stuff of the GOP that's been warned about. Even as they sidle up to Israel, it's suggested that it's a completely transactional relationship they have with that whole problem. And so, again, there is a school of thought which is the Jewish community shouldn't necessarily see Donald Trump as their savior just because he's a backer of Israel. So here's the press secretary for Joe Biden said there's no justification for spreading toxic false stereotypes that threaten fellow citizens. So in any case, Chuck Schumer spoke also to make Israel a partisan issue only hurts Israel and the U.S.-Israeli relationship. Look, Donald Trump is throwing everything at the wall, and he's trying to see what sticks. And so if he can get more of the Jewish community on board, great. But what he said is anti-Semitic. And the idea that you're going to blame the Jewish community if you lose, I mean, come on, that's straight up Jew hating. Yeah, it's straight up Jew hating. So I thought it was just one thing I wanted to get to before I get to Friday Fab to tell me, that it's getting a little bit late. Okay, well, let me just quickly mention this.
The Mark Thompson Show.
J.D. Vance's team was told that the Haitian immigrant rumors were false. He was told that before the debate, before Donald Trump echoed the things that J.D. Vance was saying. The mayor of Springfield confirmed that. Even as the Trump campaign continues to push false claims about Haitian immigrants in Springfield, even after a top city leader told a campaign staffer for its vice presidential nominee ahead of the presidential debate that the rumors were baseless, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that J.D. Vance, Trump, and all of the Trump people knew there was no truth to it. They called the Springfield city manager, Brian Heck, J.D. Vance's people did, asked if there was any truth to the rumors about Haitian immigrants eating pets in Springfield. He asked point blank, are the rumors true of pets being taken and eaten? That was asked to, again, the city manager. And he said, I told him no. There's no verifiable evidence and reports to show this is true. I told him these claims are baseless. Yes, that call was made. And the answer was given. This is a quote. And what has happened since has happened. That was from the mayor. The mayor said that. So it's a mess in Springfield. They knew it was false, and they continued to hit it. And in so doing, two things happen. One is you dog whistle, if you want to even call it a dog whistle, the immigrant issue. So you all of a sudden begin to get people to focus on the immigrant issue, even though they're focusing on a total falsehood. A total falsehood that has brought a city to its knees. They've had to cancel schools. They've had to cancel official events. It's a horror show there in Springfield.
Yesterday, the mayor had to take emergency powers because of security and threats to that community.
This is a community picked out of the hat that the GOP has used to, and Trump has used to persist in this jihad they have on immigrants. And they picked it out so randomly because there's just nothing to it. This community that was actually struggling, reinvigorated by the immigration, the addition, if you will, of so many immigrants. And now, yes, stressors on some city services, without question. But that's not what this is about. This is about a made-up story. And it's just wild enough, it's just a big enough lie that it has spread with a virality that is damaging all of those people in Springfield and beyond. I mean, now you have, again, the immigration issue becoming front and center in the way that everybody's pursuing a lie. But the other thing that it does, and I thought this was a point that Buttigieg made the other day, and I thought he made it well, and that is it takes attention off of the madness that is Trump. So as Trump is this train wreck, you don't really focus on the rest of the train wreck because we're so focused on this one part of the train wreck. And the last thing I do, I know I said it was two things. I'd add 2B would be J.D. Vance. What a madman. J.D. Vance is an absolute awful person who is someone who is in the VP number 2 position on the Trump ticket because he's a fire-breathing dragon of hate. And he was echoing what Trump was saying from a hateful perspective. And Trump liked that. And Trump chose him for that reason. So I think two things we can reflect on this Friday. One is that, which I've just said, which is that Trump picked J.D. Vance because he was, again, doubling down, if you will, on a lot of the positions that Trump was articulating. And he knew that J.D. Vance could articulate them well also. I mean, when I say well, it's still a degree of madness, but he is well-spoken and handles the media well. And Trump was feeling great confidence at the time. He was running against Biden when he chose J.D. Vance. I think if he has to make that choice today, he doesn't choose J.D. Vance. He chooses somebody to balance that ticket. But there's no balance with J.D. Vance. And I think those are the two essential aspects, that you have a doubling down, a lack of balance, and that you have in J.D. Vance this mouthpiece of hate. And that's what he wanted. So, Albert, we have to do Florida, don't we?
The Mark Thompson Show.
What do we have today, Albert?
Friday Fabulous Florida. And right. We have a pre-recorded with, you mentioned it with Michael Shure.
Oh, yeah, we recorded it last night because Michael Shure couldn't make it today. So we have actually a great piece in that recorded thing that we did with Shure about Robinson and beyond. I also wanted to get into RFK Jr. There's news around him. I mean, it's crazy. I've got some cannabis news. I've got some news on the Titan submersible sub. I hope I get to all of this. But for now, Albert, I'd like to do it. And before I do, I want to encourage everyone to smash the like button. I'm shocking because all the stuff we have to. By the way, I saw in a comment that someone was saying, I was telling Kim about it last night, watching your show, trying to watch it, and there were so many commercials I had to leave. And I'm thinking,
you're talking about the show, right? Someone was trying to watch our show, and there were so many commercials that they're like, yeah, that's enough. On YouTube, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're cutting out a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's a YouTube thing. We don't control that. Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm cutting out. I apologize.
Yeah, you're cutting out just a little bit. Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me now or no? Can you hear me now?
It's a little scratchy. But I think reconnects and then you're okay again. So, yeah. Are you hearing that, Albert, or is it just me?
You want me to
a little bit? Yeah, we could just. I'll play a longer sweeper here, and then when we come back, you could reconnect, and we could do Friday Fabulous Florida.
Okay,
my connection's also kind of droppy. I think it's our platform. Our platform's kind of iffy today.
Yeah.
So I'll play this the sweep, and then Mark, you could just reconnect.
You got it. You gonna play it?
He's playing it. It's coming.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
What he's got going here is a situation.
It's unbelievably offensive.
Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
Ralph Nader just sent me a book. Did he send you one too?
I offer this sincere apology to you today.
Everything is going extremely well.
Calling me a liar? Now what you call him?
You, sir, are a liar.
You are a cover-up artist, and you are a liar.
Liar, your pants are on fire!
Google told me.
Can you let him finish, sir? It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
No, no, no.
I'm going to tell you what I think.
What are the porn stars doing?
Do you have a secret talent?
Doesn't anybody better weed?
100% effective. How about that?
Say what?
And this is their new host.
There is no defense for my conduct.
I misspoke. I stand corrected.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Time's up, mother effers.
Wow. Right on. I felt invigorated by that. Can you hear me now without any problem? No? I'm still breaking up?
Yes, you can, but now Kim's muted. But everything is good.
Great. I tell you,
You
this
sound
has gone
great.
so well. All right. Albert, I will warn you. Wow, I recommend you do not spend this on Trump crypto, says Pietro, as he hits us with a $19.99, $20. Call it $19.99, call it $20. It is a huge
Thank you.
super chat. I am, exactly. I'm a big shout out to Pietro, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
No contendo. Kemp got votes. This is in Georgia, I guess you're talking about. Walker didn't. Robinson Hurts 45. There you go. Well, no contendo has said it. Thank you, no contendo.
Big shout out.
Big shout out. Yeah. We have anything else, Kim, before we get to Florida?
I like this
Randy?
comment from Randy. He says, did you also see the Trump campaign is pressuring Nebraska to change its electoral vote allocation to be winner take all?
Sure.
Nebraska, he says, gives 2 electoral votes to popular vote winner and something else. But I thought that was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little late in the game, but you know, look, there are a lot of people who believes. There are a lot of people who believes. There are a lot of people who believe that the Republican ground game has changed. It's changed from winning elections to gaming elections.
Yeah.
So the idea is that I'm going to game the count. I'm going to game the people who are deciding that the count should be certified. I'm going to game this system somehow because I can't win the voice of the people. The people have spoken, and they do not back me as a GOP candidate. I, Donald Trump, I, whomever, Mark Robinson, whomever. And as a result, I'm going to work this system to essentially build a strategy to take the election. Was it Stalin who said it's not about the voting, it's about the counting, you know? So it really is all about that process, and I think in that spirit, that's what's happening. Doesn't surprise me.
A report on CNN today that says at least 36 cases are pending related to voter rolls in 19 different states. Most of these suits brought by the Republican National Committee against state election officials in battleground states like Georgia and Nevada, Michigan, Wisconsin, especially a right-wing attempt to purge voter rolls centering around claims that non-citizens are casting illegal votes for Democrats. But we know that is exceedingly rare. That it hardly happens. As a matter of fact, CNN says there's a right-leaning group, the Heritage Foundation, we know them, right? They've got a database confirming fraud cases listing fewer than 100 examples of non-citizens voting between 2002 and 2022, 20 years, and they only came up with fewer than 100 cases.
And
so
the Heritage Foundation, they've got some money. They can find, you know, if there's corruption, they would find it. They certainly have the lawyers and researchers. The one thing I would say is, and I am surprised that this question is not asked more often. Explain to me why, if I were in the country illegally, because that's what you're saying, you, the GOP, are saying so many millions of people are voting illegally. They are in the country illegally, and they're voting for Democrats. If I were in the country illegally, if you were in the country illegally, think about it. Why would you go to a polling place where You're going to see police officers. You're going to see public officials of all sorts. When you're in the country illegally, and that's what you're saying, that I am in the country illegally as an illegal immigrant and I'm voting and I'm influencing elections, you want to keep your head low. You don't want any trouble. I never want to see a cop. I'm always driving the speed limit. I don't want to go to a place where there are going to be a lot of different sorts of cops, and I don't want to pull off something of the sort that you're talking about. That's never talked about by the GOP. Explain to me what you're telling me. I walked, swam, whatever, got to the United States, and now I want to blow it all by showing up at a polling place to cast a vote for who? Joe Biden, Kamala Harris? I don't care who it is. It's ridiculous. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. So, and then Trump, after he got in office, says, 2 to 3 million people voted illegally in, what was it, New Hampshire? And they actually assign and designate an entire group of government officials to investigate that. It cost the taxpayers money to investigate all that crap, all because he just didn't want to appear wrong. And so, of course, that investigation goes on. They show no evidence of it. I mean, he had a whole thing about, hey, they were busing people in, illegal immigrants to, again, there's no incentive that an illegal has to show up at a polling place or to vote. You don't want your address anywhere. You want to keep your head low. I never hear it mentioned. It doesn't make sense. And still, now look at what's happened. The American electoral system, already troubled by this electoral college crap that we deal with presidential elections, it's been hijacked by this completely invented story about how illegal immigrants are voting for Democrats. It's completely invented. It's just like the Haitian immigrant story that was invented. That one's invented, and it's ruined a town. It's threatened people's lives in this Springfield, Ohio BS scenario. Now, they've made up and pursued and undaunted continue every election cycle with this ridiculousness about how illegal immigrants are voting for Democrats, and it's beginning to ruin our electoral system even more. Look at what's happening. Hand ballots, they want special IDs. And I think you can have reasonable conversations about what identification should be in evidence, how the signature should match. These are all things that you can do as far as having reasonable conversations about them. But the idea somehow that there are all these illegal immigrants who are voting for Democrats in the American elections, it's insanity. Absolute insanity. All right. Fridays, we like to go to a state that puts insanity in perspective. This is Friday Fabulous Florida.
It's time for Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
A look at the weirdest stories from our weirdest state.
A Florida man is arrested. It's Pasco County, Florida. He was fleeing a traffic stop, and once they actually stopped him, he realized he had to conceal illegal drugs, cocaine. And he decided to conceal that illegal stash by ingesting it.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. 40-year-old Joel Craig Wallace was speeding on US 19. And Wallace refused to stop. It was a brief pursuit. It ended when he arrived at his residence there on Kibler Lane. That's such a lovely neighborhood. Before his arrest, Wallace ingested cocaine in an attempt to hide the drugs, according to troopers.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
Well, you have, to be fair to Wallace, you have limited options. I mean, really, you know what I'm saying? So he was fleeing, eluding, and he still was possessing. And so they charged him with all of that. By the way, because he did ingest at that point, it was evidence, he gets a tampering with evidence charge thrown in. So there is that as well.
This can't be the mugshot, is it?
Yeah,
that's not.
Is that the mugshot?
There was no mugshot. This was the only photo they had in there.
Okay.
I'm not going to, it's not a booking photo, so technically we cannot rate it. I'm sorry, everyone. A Florida man removes 20 Burmese pythons from the Everglades. It was part of a contest. Ronald Kiger wins $10,000 in the Florida Python Challenge. It was a... There's so many people to thank. First, I want to thank my reptilian friends. Without you, I could never have won this award. It's the Florida Python Challenge, 10 days out there in the Everglades. And he removed 20 Burmese pythons. He gets $10,000. Representatives from the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission announcing his win Tuesday morning. They did it at a big meeting in Duck Key. He was last year's runner-up, so a lot of people were picking him to win it all this year, Kim. But he, this time, wins, and over 800 people were competing. 33 different states and Canada all have entrants. And this guy...
a pretty big contest. They go out and they kill these snakes, right? They go out and it's the way to cull the snake population there in the Everglades.
A contractor from South Florida Water Management District rattled the competition by almost tying Kiger this year. Donna Callell is her name. It's a woman. That's right. She won a $2,500 prize for catching 19 pythons.
Wow.
Yeah. It can be very dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, she said. Thank you, Commander Obvious. A big snake can definitely kill you, she says. If it gets around your neck, it could strangle you out. The longest snake caught in this competition measured at 9 feet 11 inches.
No.
That's 3 meters for those of you who are, watching from other countries. A Florida man suspects a thief is trapped inside his Corvette. A suspected thief, caught trapped inside a Corvette by the car's owner. This is in Miami. Just happened this week. All of this stuff, all these stories are just days old. They still have the new smell. The footage recorded apparently shows the moment that this dude approached his car only to find a man trapped inside. You can hear the guy trapped saying, the owner came to the car. You can hear him saying, "My brother, this is not your car. This is my car." 33-year-old Ravish Rabindranat gestured for the owner to open the door, to which the owner said, "No, you can't get out. We're calling the cops."
I love it.
Yeah.
Here comes the police.
You picked the wrong car, my friend.
You did. It's like Knight Rider.
Yeah. It's an unconventional door mechanism, apparently, and the guy could not figure out how to work it. He was eventually freed from the car, and he was arrested, charged with burglary of an unoccupied conveyance. Oh, I love how they conveyance still.
Sayonara, sucker.
Sayonara, sucker. Florida
right.
woman attacks and throws steak knives at a man after leaving her at a bar. She was taken to jail after she attacked a guy with steak knives, also threw a bottle opener. This is at a Flagler County home last week in the Palm Coast region of Florida. Daylene Keller, 34, arrested on charges of aggravated battery. There's aggravated battery. She aggravated and aggravated. She aggravated. She was so aggravated that it aggregated. And then
she looks like a lady she looks like a lady who's had enough.
She does. She looks angry. She doesn't look bad. I think she could soften that look and probably be very, very lovely. Why? What do you want to give her?
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
They aggravate and then aggregate.
She looks both angry and sad at the same time. I'm going with a 7.5.
No, very nice. I like it. Yes. Deputies called out to a home regarding this woman, later identified as the woman we see, Keller, attacking a man. The victim, who called the cops, said that the incident started after he left her at a bar because he wanted to leave and she didn't want to leave. The two met up with each other later that night, and that's when deputies said that she grabbed 3 steak knives and a bottle opener and began attacking him. Now, you got to have 3 steak knives because if the first steak knife goes bad, you got the second steak knife. If that goes bad, you got the third one. The deputy said she threw a knife at him and he hid behind a chair. And when asked, when he tried to disarm her, apparently, she stabbed him in the forearm with a bottle opener.
Ooh.
Then threw 2 knives at him. So she did discharge all of her weaponry. And when he tried to run away, apparently one of those knives struck him in the back and in his ear.
Ooh.
When the cops got there, they found the man bleeding from 2 puncture wounds and a laceration. She was taken into custody where she and booked into the Flagler County Jail. $13,000 is the bond. It's a brutal, brutal ride, Kim.
That doesn't seem like a very big bond for all the physical damage she did.
Well, I agree with you. She seems very doable, that bond, but I'm guessing that she's probably not able to come up with $13K too easily.
No.
You need the cash right away, but maybe you'll want to vote for her as we pick a favorite. And this is the list to remind you. The guy who snorts cocaine to hide evidence after fleeing a traffic stop. The Florida man who removes 20 Burmese pythons from the Florida Everglades, winning a contest that he's always dreamt of winning. A Florida man suspected thief trapped inside the guy's Corvette. Let me out, he said. I'm not letting you out. I'm calling the cops, said the owner. And finally, the Florida woman throwing 3 steak knives and a bottle opener at her friend, the man who left her at a bar earlier that night. We don't want to pick a favorite, but the bylaws of the show do require it. What is leading in the chat, please, Albert?
I'm calling it trapped in theft. It's the guy who's trapped inside the car.
Oh, I would not have predicted that. Wow. I am surprised.
It doesn't have
by
the
that.
usual favorites of Florida, but it is very Florida in itself, but it just doesn't have the classics in there.
Yeah. What about you, Kim? What do you pick as your favorite, please?
I'm going with the inside the car guy. Absolutely. I mean, it's poetic justice that he can't get out. I love it.
You're right.
Kim, how are you?
That's exactly right.
How hard is it? I've never been inside a Corvette, but how hard would it be to just unlock it from the inside? Maybe.
Apparently, it's pretty hard. It's all the guy was trying to do for like a half hour. So
complicated.
How hard could it be? Apparently, it's pretty hard. Yeah.
I love the owner of the car. I'm not gonna. He's like, "Can we let me out?" Nope.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
Letting you out is not part of the plan.
I'd like to think they're trying to hit the unlock from the inside, and he kept on hitting the lock from the outside. They're doing a little dance until the cops.
Oh God, that's great. I really do love it. Well, how about so Albert, you picked the guy also trapped inside the car. What did you pick?
I kind of like the steak knife thrower. That was an all-time. It was a different looking booking photo. Right when I saw the booking photo, I'm like, this is great. And also, it takes some accuracy to throw some knives. So, one door might have closed, like her criminal history might have opened, but she has a path. It might be a new career. She could be one of those.
You think she has a future as a steak knife thrower?
Steak knife thrower,
Albert, thank you.
That's really wild. Yeah. Well, I would pick because it's old school Florida. Guy on the run from the cops snorting all the cocaine down. I don't know. I just feel like that's just straight up Florida lawlessness. So that's my my favorite. If you have a favorite, it really looks like the incompetent car caper is, as Karen says, one that's leading the pack. I encourage you to leave it in the comment section. We do check them in replay, so you can leave them in YouTube, and we will hide and seek Corvette style, and we will check them out. Thank you, Albert, for another successful curation of Friday Fabulous Florida. That's it for this edition.
This has been Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
Y'all come back now, here.
Right on, Albert.
The Mark Thompson Show.
So, Albert, I want to tell everyone just joining us that, first of all, we're so excited that you're here. I should mention one thing that hasn't been mentioned, and then I will share with you the conversation we had with Michael Shure. We discussed the Robinson issue. We discussed its effects in North Carolina. We also broaden that conversation to other aspects of the political landscape as we really close in on what is the real sprint toward the general election. And as we told you in the first hour, there is this move already in Georgia to hand count ballots. That's going to slow things down. Kim shared the move on the part of the Trump administration to somehow change how the Electoral College distribution works in the state of Nebraska. But again, we'll get to Michael Shure in a moment. I did want to mention, because it is, it's something that isn't lost on me, and I'm really proud of the work we've done, and we try to, show up every day for you. Here I am visiting my mother, and we still feel a need and a desire to do the show live every day for you. And we do it 2 to 4 on the East Coast, 11 to 1 in the Western time zone. We love our supporters, our Patreon supporters, our PayPal supporters. I'll be singling a few of you out here at the end of the Michael Shure Report. And I want to just note that we reached 45,000 subscribers on this channel, and it's pretty amazing. Yeah. I really feel as though we are homegrown. So the only way we've gotten there is because you've shared this. Maybe it's a video, maybe it's a conversation, maybe it's a link to a short, whatever it might be. You've shared it on your social media. And it costs you nothing to do that, but it also is a little bit of trouble. So you have to go, oh, I really like this conversation with David Katz, or I thought this is an interesting conversation with David K. Johnston, whatever it might be. When you post it to your Facebook or other social media, it helps spread our footprint. And in that way, it helps build the show. And eventually, the hope is, if we can build the subscriber base and the viewer base, that we won't have to put the bite on you to support us and to make our payroll. Because right now we are essentially completely supported by Patreon and PayPal subscribers, and by those of you who are kind enough to hit us on YouTube with super stickers and super chats. So, but more than anything, thank you. It's really cool. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. 45K. Is
Thank
pretty
you
great.
so much.
Thank you so much. All right. Michael Shure couldn't be here live with us in this moment. So what was it, about 9 hours ago? We, or something like, I don't know how many hours ago it was, but during the late night hours, we recorded a look at everything political with our favorite political analyst, Michael Shure. Take a look.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Right on. What a week it has been in the world of politics. So significant that we had to corral Michael Shure while he was en route. So this is us talking to him ahead of time, I guess you would say. We like to be upfront about the fact when something's recorded. This man has forgotten more about politics than most of us will ever know. Put it together for the great Michael Shure, everyone. Yes. Thank you for this special connection tonight. I say tonight, many of you will see it in the morning, you'll see it in the afternoon, you'll see it in the evening, but the point is that you'll see it, because this has been one of those wild weeks. I'm going to start, we had an assassination attempt, or at least somebody who looked as though they were about to attempt to assassinate the former president. And we've had a bunch of stuff in between. We're going to start with the most recent stuff first, which involves North Carolina. You'll explain to us why North Carolina is so critical. The lieutenant governor there, this guy, Mark Robinson, is now being exposed as someone who was...
So am I. I should probably button up.
I should say that this is why this is in some kind of context. When I said he's being exposed, Kim jumped on, which is very unusual. But in any case, he is a a real flamethrower when it comes to anti-LGBTQ stuff, when it comes to traditional family values. He's really representative of that strong right-wing, theologically informed position that the MAGA right takes. I'm going to play you a little chunk.
This, by the way, is a man that Donald Trump has endorsed and praised many times, but endorsed for his run for North Carolina governor.
In that spirit, we're going to play you a chunk of tape that we've lifted, or recording that we've just lifted from MS. Thank you to our friends at MS. And it does give you a little bit of a Donald Trump endorsement mashup and also a bit of a Mark Robinson mashup. Go ahead, Kim, please.
There's no reason anybody anywhere in America should be telling any child about transgenderism, homosexuality, any of that filth. And yes, I called it filth.
Does seem to be a bit of a filth expert. In an interview tonight, Robinson denied that any of the messages belonged to him.
This is not us. These are not our words, and this is not anything that is characteristic of me, nor has it ever been.
How do you explain all of the matching details on this profile? The profile on Nude Africa lists your full name as Mark Robinson. The email listed on the account is an email that you have used elsewhere on the internet, including with your photo. You have used that name, Mini Soldier, on multiple social media accounts, including Twitter, Pinterest, Black Planet, and YouTube. How can you deny, with all of these matching details, that this is you?
Look, I'm not going to get into the minutia of how somebody manufactured these salacious tabloid lies.
We should also note that the report uncovered some very specific language used in the posts at issue. Uncommon phrases such as gag a maggot, dunderhead, I don't give a frog's ass, and I don't give two shakes of it. They were used by the account on Nude Africa and by Mark Robinson on his personal Facebook page. Also, according to the report, Robinson spoke admirably about the KKK, implying he would join if the hate group allowed Black members, made disparaging remarks about Martin Luther King Jr., calling him a racial slur and an effing commie bastard. Bit more than a bit ironic, considering what Trump likes to say about his good friend Mark Robinson.
I said to this man, and when he endorsed me, he gave a speech, and I said, "You are Dr. Martin Luther King on steroids. That's how good you are. You are unbelievable as a speaker." And he got up, and he's doing fantastically well in North Carolina, and I think he's going to be the next governor of North Carolina, Mark Robinson.
I don't know if I put money on that bet right now.
All right, so that is where we sit. I thought that I like that mashup because in it you saw both Mark Robinson and you saw Trump, as you suggested, embracing him. Actually, it goes on, and the other Trump family members, Don Jr. among them, talk about how close they are to him. This is prior, of course, to these revelations that we've been dealing with. Now, you know, this has, and then I'll shut up, Michael Shure, and let you talk, but this smacks to me of it feels very Anthony Weiner-like, meaning the denials, it couldn't have been me, somebody jacked my account, you know, I don't know how they did it, we're going to find out, I want a full investigation. 2 days later, Anthony Weiner, they had him, and we know the rest of the history. I wonder if you can speak to two things. A, if you feel that this might follow the same arc, given the fact that they found the same verbiage on his Facebook page, et cetera. That is to say, the breadcrumb trail is too clear to deny. And also, explain to me why this guy is important in American politics right now in North Carolina.
Well, so first of all, you know, they all seem to follow a similar arc to the Anthony Weiner story, and he wasn't the first, and clearly he wasn't the last, though I don't think he was calling himself a black Nazi. But he, this whole, there is the revelation, the denial, the silence from people who support him, and then I think it's best for the party, I think it's best for the city, the country, whatever it is, fill in the blank, and the bow out. Very rarely do people press on, and very rarely when people do press on, Weiner tried to have a second act when he ran for mayor of New York, and then there was more of the same. But rarely when people do press on, does it not stick to them. And so I think that his days are numbered. at Faber College, as they said, as Dean Wormer said in Animal House. And I think, what's important about Mark Robinson, first of all, it's a state now that that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are spending a lot of money in, because they feel that there is a shot at winning North Carolina, better than a shot at winning North Carolina, a state that is, red to purple. But it's one that Donald Trump is now being forced to spend money in. And if the Republican Party is in shambles there, and Black Republicans don't come out because they feel as if the candidate that they've been supporting is not there, then support for Donald Trump would tend to dwindle as well. And so I think the distaste for the Republican who's been on the air probably more than Trump in that state, and more repeatedly, the distaste for him and the scandal associated with him, because this is very different than the scandal that Donald Trump has attached to him. Also, voters have forgiven Donald Trump. And I think for a Black candidate, no matter what the party and what the race, they have a higher hurdle, unfortunately. And so I think when it happens to somebody like Mark Robinson in this case, I think it could really hurt. And then it could, of course, help the Democrats in a state that could deliver electoral votes that the Republicans had not put into their math.
We should mention that Mark Robinson's history includes walking back other comments. It wouldn't be his first walk back, although I don't think you can walk this one back.
No, I don't think you can walk this one back. It's going to have to be, Donald Trump's going to have a rally on Saturday in North Carolina. It'll be interesting to see how he handles it, because it's going to have to be something to do with how Trump and the other surrogates for Trump handle it in North Carolina. They don't want to lose the state house, but they certainly don't want to lose North Carolina in the election.
I mean, he calls the transgender community sick and demonic, and yet on this porn site, he talked about how much he enjoyed watching transgender porn. He also walk back anti-Semitic comments in the past, as you're aware. He's really he's someone that's so far right as a MAGA spokesperson, meaning just for all those things that that this is really a tough spot. Normally, Trump would say, "I don't know him that well. I never really," that's Trump's go-to move. But in this case, I think there are too many fingerprints on him.
Yeah, and Trump also knows that these 16 electoral votes and the foibles of Mark Robinson could cost him the election. And how they deal with that, whether they push back and double down, or whether, he says, we have no space for somebody like this, and can try and turn it into an advantage. And the sacrifice there being the state house in North Carolina, which Donald Trump probably, doesn't care about.
I just think of Trump as they're in this space where, we hook up with porn stars, then we pay them for their silence, but we don't actually go to porn sites and then write in their chat rooms. I mean, it's an odd kind of position,
It is. I mean, look, the sting follows them, right? I mean, these people who do this and have these associations have been successful as Republicans. I think it's not going to be easy for Mark Robinson for reasons I stated earlier. And then the Republican Party in North Carolina is hurt. And then some people will be angry that the Republicans let him drop out of the race, and they're going to protest. People react to these sorts of things in very different ways. But this is still a very close state, and I would say that it probably tilts toward the Republican candidate anyway. But this sort of thing, in terms of the presidency, and I think this sort of thing can really put that in jeopardy, because it's a place, like I said, people are spending money there, and both, the Democrats hadn't expected it to be as close, and the Republicans hadn't expected to have to spend money there.
The truth is that if he pulls out off the ticket, if you will, after, there's no way to get out. I mean, the 0 hour is right now. I mean, I mean, as you and I speak, we're speaking almost midnight. It's after midnight, so it's too late for him to get off the ticket. This is Thursday night, and by the time we'll see this on Friday. So I say to you, then, sort of as a practical matter, is what happens? I mean, people can still vote Republican for governor, but the reality is he would not be able to ascend to the governorship.
Yeah, I mean, I think the focus is not really on who's going to be, punching the clock in Raleigh. I think the focus is going to be on what the effect of this is on the Republican Party, and people who vote the straight ballot, that's one thing, but people who kind of look around and poke around may have less inclination to vote for the Republican because of his association with Mark Robinson. In states where there are close races, and many of your viewers know this, you cannot turn the TV on still without seeing so many ads, or your internet if you have location enabled, and you're going to see ad after ad after ad. This governor's race has been a very expensive race, and Josh Stein has spent a lot of money on the Democratic side, and Robinson, being the lieutenant governor endorsed by Trump in a red state, known because he's been on ballots before, has had a lot of money to spend relatively in that state. So this throws everything out of whack. And I think that it's going to impact the presidential race, and whether it turns it, I don't know. But the presidential race needs 16 electoral votes, and that's big.
Just to be clear, Michael, the Democrat was leading there already, correct?
Yes, the Democrat was leading there already, and there's a Democratic governor, Roy Cooper, in North Carolina now. But it's not the kind of Democrat that you'd find in Sacramento. So, but nonetheless, that matters, and I think that whether or not he was going to win or was not going to win, it attaches something to the Republican Party and the Trump campaign that really may turn a lot of people off.
Now, I want to go back to the beginning of the week. Donald Trump is playing golf. Secret Service spots a guy. They see the barrel of the rifle, and shots are fired. They give chase. They ultimately get this guy. Fortunately, no one was hurt. The guy, once again, is a Republican or a MAGA guy who, I guess, has a thing for Ukraine. I mean, in his profile, it's a bit confusing as to what might have motivated this act. But I wonder if you could speak to this event, put it in some kind of context during this presidential race that has been marked by this. And then ultimately, I'd love to get your comments on what the GOP has decided to do, which is to blame Democrats for the rhetoric that produced this act to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously ridiculous to assume that only Democrats have been using rhetoric at all. And the worst of the rhetoric, I think we could objectively agree on, has been coming from Republicans. And not to say that rhetoric doesn't raise the temperature, right? And maybe enable these types of crazy people. But the other thing that I would caution is, yes, he was Republican. The last guy voted for Trump, I think. I don't remember the guy in Pennsylvania who was killed. These are crazy people. These are people who are mentally ill, who are disturbed, and who have fantasies about doing these sorts of things. If we had known that Charles Guiteau had social media before he shot James Garfield, who, by the way, died, I believe, today in 1870, let's say, 9.
That's what I'm talking about. It's just, it's amazing. I don't know how he knows this.
And we would know more about how crazy they were, right? And how disturbed. And maybe crazy isn't a word that people should use anymore, but I think that, when you hear somebody pick up a gun and plot to kill a president, there's something loony about that. And so what the most important thing is, we have to protect these people. The rhetoric or the tribalism has taken it to such a point where people both want attention and celebrity, as they always have, but also want to prove a point and be a martyr. And the Secret Service is just not, whether they're not funded well enough, whether they don't have enough people, they're not doing a good enough job. When a former president who is the nominee of their party is playing golf, the security around that golf course should be better than it was. And I think the Secret Service has had a couple of lapses that have been, fortunately, for the protectee, have been not as serious. But as we know, there were people who lost their lives in Pennsylvania. So I think a lot of it has to do with fixing up the Secret Service in a bipartisan way. They are saying that. And then when you talk about the rhetoric being the causation of this stuff, I don't doubt that, but I don't think the blame could go both ways at all. And I think we've seen uglier rhetoric coming. I mean, we have two nominees of a party who are intentionally mispronouncing the name of their opponent to try and rile people up about it and try and be petty about it. And what are these acts? They're acts of pettiness and derangement. And so I think across the board, when you look at one side, you're going to see rhetoric that's a whole lot worse than the other side. And not to say that when you're running for president, you don't have heightened rhetoric and say things that you wouldn't say to other people about your opponent.
Well, I'll return to the rhetoric thing in a second, because I think there's even a more glaring example. But I want to just mention on the Secret Service that there apparently is a lot of agreement with you on the fact that the Secret Service needs to do more and needs to sort of buff it up. The problem is that they're underfunded, they say, and the word as well is, in this context of the insanely supercharged rhetoric that we're seeing as part of the political discourse, the Secret Service is saying we need to step up protection. We don't have the money to do it right now. So it's as though we recognize, the Secret Service is saying, that we need to do more, but we can't do more with the money that's currently allocated. So they're trying to get more money now. And as you say, it's a bipartisan effort. The rhetoric that I was going to mention, and the example of it, I think is beyond, of course, and as you're well aware, the mispronunciation of Kamala Harris, but it's all about.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was trying to.
You were trying to say it's even that petty. No, I understand what you were saying. You're saying it's even that like there's no nothing too small to kind of and then of course all the way up the line to what's happening in Ohio, where a story is invented. They understand that it's invented. There is absolutely no evidence of this story with the pets and the cats and the dogs. I thought it was comical at the time. Now it's kind of gotten into this incredibly ugly place where people are begging them. I'm people from Springfield, Ohio. I'm talking about people in official positions, the mayor, the police chief, etc. Please stop. You are destroying our community with a total falsehood.
Yeah, and they've had to cancel events, and they've had to put police outside of normal places, libraries and post offices, all because these people on stage are making things up about eating pets. And then when you hear that, it's so provocative and it goes so viral in today's world that people go to Springfield and call in threats and use ugly language. And that's the ills of social media and the ills of having the internet there to make things multiply so quickly and make stories go so viral. It's bad when it's bad. I mean, it's good to get news. It's good to know that in disasters you have ways of contacting people and whatnot and monitoring them, and there's so many good things about it. But in politics and when it comes to rhetoric, it's really been very destructive, even if momentarily.
I mean, the old saying that, a lie goes around the world 4 times before the truth even gets its shoes on is really so applicable during this time, as you've said, that is defined by how quickly information and misinformation gets out there.
And when that was said, it was probably, in the age of Garfield, right? when things didn't go, which, by the way, I think he died in 1881, but that's for another time.
Yeah, that's what you deserve for having to show off with that Garfield trivia.
No, I mean, it was the 19th when we're doing this. I know that, but I think it was 1881. But regardless, even then it would go around the world 4 times. How long does it take for somebody to go around the world now, right? It doesn't.
Exactly. All right. So now to the subject that you're always talking me off of, and that is the polling.
Well, by the way, I said when we would talk about it a year ago and 6 months ago, I would talk you off. I did say that after Labor Day, these polls start to matter. Right? So we're in that zone.
So in aggregate polling, there's some cross currents, but it would appear, I mean, I thought the most consistent polling seemed to show Harris with within the margin of error lead nationally. Nationally means little or nothing, I would think, to most of us, because we know that nationally doesn't really define how we choose a president. In the swing states, it would appear now that, in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, in Michigan, and you can extend this, I guess, Arizona, Nevada, et cetera. Yeah. But in the big three, it would look as though now Harris has not only closed the gap with Trump, the gap that existed, pre-debate, but has actually now exceeded the dead heat mark and now would appear to be slightly in the plus column. Can you comment on where we are now and how reliable or how much confidence you have in that?
Well, let's answer the first part, which is to talk about why the polls matter now more. Right? I mean, one of them is that we have 2 tickets. We know who the 4 people are that are running for president. And the bulk of the money has been given to these tickets. So you wouldn't know that from your emails and your texts probably, but the big money has come to these candidates already. And how they spend it is determined by a lot of the polls that happen now. The national polls, I agree, they're indicative of something, but they're also, people like to be on a winner. Americans like to be on a winner specifically. And as somebody does better in the national polling, and especially in times, and we're not in one now, where people would pull away in national polling, it would create some momentum. And that's why candidates like the national polling, even when we elect our presidents through the Electoral College. But when you get to those state polls, right now you're starting to see what is happening. And then they get indications, like we were talking about North Carolina earlier. Well, it's tighter in North Carolina. Yeah, it's great in Pennsylvania. The Trump people see it going a little bit downhill in Pennsylvania. So now they know they have to spend a lot of money in that state and try and do appearances. They know that North Carolina is now trouble. So both campaigns are in there because it's tightened up. Trump has pulled out of New Hampshire, which at one time was a swing state, because it looks like it's in the bag for Harris right now. So these polls do matter now because they dictate how money is spent and where media goes. And what, Kamala Harris, a knock against her is that she hasn't done terribly many interviews. I was very critical of it on the show and in other places, but it actually turned out it worked out for her because her poll numbers and everything went up even without doing that media. And now she's concentrating her media hits in places like that. She wants to be defined on big stages. So she tried to get defined at the campaign and at the debate. And you know what? Hats off to her. She got good results from both of those. And that was in the period where people were saying, why aren't you speaking to the media? Well, now she's speaking to the media more, going to small markets in big states when I say big states, important states for her. And that this could be a strategy that's a winning strategy, but it's all dictated by the polls. And that's why I say they matter a lot now. And the ones you read off are good for Harris.
The media, this is my opinion, and I'm curious whether you agree.
Mm-hmm.
The media, I think, is falling into the exact same pattern of political coverage. I'm talking about mainstream media, the major networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, that they had with Trump in every iteration of Trump. They cover Trump, Trump's good copy, Trump's good clicks. Trump is such a train wreck. Trump will say anything. I understand why they do it. He's the shiniest object. But boy, that's not good for Kamala Harris. Do you agree with my supposition and then
I don't know. I mean, Joe Biden in 2020 made the election about Donald Trump and he won the presidency. I think he would have done the same thing in 2024, and it would have been more about Joe Biden this time because of his age and the way that was being portrayed. Had he been younger and was running on his record and wasn't, as frail as we've all seen him be, I think it would have been different. But so I think if you are running in this election, you cannot just make it about Donald Trump. But the more it is about Donald Trump, even by accident, I think the better it is for his opponent, because this is an election about people who are in the middle. And I when I say in the middle, I don't mean that they're necessarily centrist. Many of them are conservative Republicans who can't bear Donald Trump, but have to have a reason not to vote for him. So the more that's out there, I think it does help his opponent. I can't see how it doesn't. And until I'm proven wrong, I think that it does.
I mean, I get that, and I'd take a meeting on that. I mean, it's very possible. It's indeed plausible that the more outrageous, because Trump is really trying to hit the ball in outrage land as far as he can,
right?
Because he's trying to make noise.
What I think is his mistake is the people that love that about him. He doesn't need to win them over. They're there. Right. They're with him. They're like glue, right? He needs to win over the people who think he's absolutely nuts and shouldn't be president, and say at the end of the day, hey, I'm a Republican. I'm going to cut your taxes, and let's do some really good things later, and not talk about eating cats and dogs, and not talk about making fun of people or mispronouncing a name. I mean, all of the things for which there is Trump fatigue. That fatigue hits hard, not just to Democrats. It hits hard to independents, and it hits hard to people who had to hold their nose and vote for Donald Trump in 2016, who maybe left in 2020 or are looking for a reason to come back. He's not giving them a reason to come back.
Kim is telling me that there are a couple of other stories that she wanted to quickly ask you about. One involves an affair, apparently, with a political reporter. Kim, do you want to jump on and quickly ask Michael about them? You'll have to unmute, and then you can talk about...
I wasn't expecting to be called upon, but I will ask Michael Shure about the New York Magazine putting this political reporter on leave because of her... They say it's a relevant relationship with RFK Jr. So she's dating him, having a relationship with him, while she's reporting on things that could possibly affect his campaign. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, any publication or network worth its salt would not want someone who is having an affair with their subject to be reporting on it. That's the definition of being biased, and so it was probably the right thing for New York Magazine. And it's interesting. If you play this out, and disclosure here is I know some of the people of the four main players in this. I know some of them, and I think that and I'm not being careful. I'm just like I think let's look at the fun politics of this, right? Suppose RFK's wife is so upset now that she goes and endorses Kamala Harris. Suppose that were to happen. Well, if that were to happen, a lot of women are going to be sympathetic to that. A lot of women are going to see that as, giving the finger to your husband who did this to you. But at the same time, your husband who is a Trump endorser who did this to you. Mm-hmm. And then it plays politically, right? I mean, so if you're a creative thinker in these sorts of things at, 40 some odd days before an election, you think, oh, how could this possibly affect the election? Well, and that's how, right? I mean, it could be a magical moment in the history of this election and make the Mark Robinson thing in North Carolina look a little less impactful, if that's even possible. So let me also put this out there. I don't think any of that's going to happen, but you start thinking about what the political impact of this is, not just the journalistic impact. But New York Magazine, I think, did the right thing, and and that's not a judgment on anything that happened. I know nothing about anything that happened, but I think in journalism you've got to take bias out of it.
No, absolutely. That happened is awful. I can't believe she did that. I mean, not only are you talking about the ramifications of what happens if the couple separates and the wife then goes for Kamala Harris,
right?
But also, what did she write? And was she writing things that were in favor of him? Was she telling the truth? Was she swaying things?
I remember one article that Olivia wrote about earlier this year about how there is another choice in this election for people who I think say they vote the lesser of two evils. Well, you have other choices, and Robert Kennedy is polling pretty well right now. This is when it was Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and it was way before anybody had a convention, maybe even a primary, but it was during that period, and it was a well-written piece, but it was talking about how, so I don't know the timing of any of this, but yeah, you look back at some of the things that were written to see if bias came into play. And I don't look, a lot of people who weren't having an affair with Robert Kennedy were writing that there are three choices. So it's,
Is this a career killer? Is she done?
Nothing is a complete career killer, but it's going to be. I think she's going to have to write a book before she gets hired in a magazine. But nothing. People have, America loves second acts, and I don't know that any of this was. People have affairs. I mean, we have a president who had affairs, right? And we've had several of them, it seems. But we've elected this guy, and we know a lot about what he did. And so, what kills careers these days? It might be different than what
Our standards are lower.
Our standards
they've certainly changed.
The bar has been set low.
Petraeus had the affair with his biographer, and it and shared major pieces of information that fall into categories that many felt sort of were verboten in terms of being shared. Yeah. So you're so right about that, Michael. Hey, man, you're so generous to stay up late with us and give us a little taste of what happened during the past week. We appreciate it, and we can see your stuff on TYT and beyond, but we look forward to next week and Fridays with you always. So thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Michael Shure, everybody.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This is Mark Thompson.
Right on, everybody. Right on. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that recorded applause. There's nothing that warms my heart more than recorded applause. I have my credibility glasses on. It's interesting. I didn't have them on for the Michael Shure interview, and you may have been disturbed by that to the point
never
that
been
you felt
anything
I lack
like this.
credibility. Yeah. I just want you to know I have them here. And my
I'm bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I did want to get to Kim's news. We haven't done any news today. But before I do, I mentioned that I was going to do something, and that is give a real special shout out, as the kids say, to
shout out
a group of people who really do help day to day with our show. Hi, Courtney. Welcome back. And, we're crowdfunded completely. I mean, we do have our Coachella Valley coffee sponsor, and they're so great, and they do supplement a little bit. It's not nothing. So we really appreciate you patronizing our sponsor and supporting our sponsor. And as I say, it's an insanely good coffee and tea, etc. But the people who really make this show happen and help us make payroll every month are on Patreon and PayPal, and also in our YouTube super chats and super stickers. So we give the super chat and super sticker people a lot of oxygen. And I just want to also give some oxygen to the people who are so supportive on PayPal. Great shows, great crew, great guests. Thank you, says Robin, for $25 a month. Scott says, last weekend we celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary. Thanks again for the way you inform and entertain us.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's really cool, Scott.
50 years. Wow.
Yeah, 50 years, and sent us $50. So that's
good.
really, really cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Molly, I look forward to your show every day, Molly says. It brings me joy. Love to hear your perspective on politics, as well as Kim, Albert, and Tony's. The entire format is fabulous. Molly sent us $100, which is really, really
so
cool
much.
through PayPal. Yeah, appreciate that.
Wow.
And Jennifer and Corla and Enid and the people who send small amounts, the people who send big amounts. I mean, it all does add up. There's a reason they say
Thank you.
any amount helps. I mean, it's really true. We put it all together, and we can make payroll, and we can make plans, and we can continue the show. So Susan and Scott, thank you. I'll have to tell you something. Scott wrote a note on his PayPal. And there are hot links to PayPal that you can click on below every video. So if you want to be part of the PayPal community or Patreon community. So Scott, in addition to sending us money on PayPal, said 5 years and haven't paid a dime. Thanks for helping me try to keep my head screwed on straight. Keep up the great work. $200 he sent us.
Wow,
which is
he's making up for lost time. Nice.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Deborah and Gennardo and Brian and Terrence and David is great. David K. The only reason I'm not using your last name, David, is I don't want you to get a bunch of people petitioning you for money. You're so generous with us. You sent us $100, and I really appreciate it, and I want you to know that. So thank you. Linda and Rita and Charlene, and Charlene says thank you for what everyone does there. Carol and Harry and Kasuke and Danny, again. Everybody, Craig and Isadora, Rory, etc. Love listening to you guys, says Cheryl. She sent us $50. It's sounding like a kid show now that I'm sending. I'm yelling. And Dale and Rory and Isadora. But I just want you to know, we really do love you guys. Couldn't do it without you. I will hijack the show another time. Janice and Peter sending us $100 a month. I mean, wow, it really does matter. And it is the life's blood of at least the operational aspects of this show. We'll handle the content. We'll work to get you good guests, good conversations, good takes, and you help us with these operational expenses we have, and I so very much appreciate it. That's only a fraction of the people I have to acknowledge, but I want to start with that fraction, and we'll do more in the days ahead. Thank you. All of our PayPal contributors, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Kim, could you give us, and bring us up to speed, could you give us a little news, kind of as we finish up? I'm curious about this bizarre story with the judge that was shot dead by that sheriff in Kentucky.
I have the story in the news, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Because I'm
Don't
just
try to scoop me now. Don't do it.
I know. I'm teasing, not scooping. All right. Kim's news, and then we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is sponsored by the amazing people at Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. If you haven't been to a grape stomp, you've got to go. I'll tell you more about it in just a moment. But first, let me tell you about the Secret Service, because the head of the Secret Service is indicating now major changes must be made following the first assassination attempt of former President Trump. In a press event today, Acting Secret Service Director Ronald Rowe said agents did not give clear direction to local police July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania. Rowe said there was complacency with some agents on that day and that they will be held accountable. Meanwhile, it was a rare, unanimous, bipartisan vote in the House of Representatives today. They passed legislation that would increase Secret Service protection for the two presidential nominees and their running mates as well. This bill originated from the House floor under what's being called an expedited process, and CNN says it does come less than a week after this apparent second assassination attempt against Trump. Israel is claiming that it has eliminated a senior commander in the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah. There's a picture of what happened there in Lebanon. You can see the smoke rising. They say it happened during an airstrike earlier today. It comes as Israel ramps up efforts to degrade the Iran-backed Lebanese militant group. The efforts reportedly included booby traps within pagers belonging to people affiliated with Hezbollah. Israel has neither confirmed nor denied the operation, but the United States believes that the IDF was indeed behind it.
It's fascinating to me the way that Israel is now concentrating on the threat, I'll use that word, coming from Hezbollah, which, as you know, really controls all of southern Lebanon. They are the government of Lebanon. So this is, I presume, a calculation that the Israelis have made. I don't pretend to understand it from the standpoint of military strategy and even political strategy. But the fears in the Middle East is that this entire conflict that began in Gaza, began on October 7th, could somehow spread into a wider conflict. And now you have an involvement of Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. And you also have other terrorist organizations that we've detailed before in various ways that can still join the fray. So I'm concerned. I'm immensely concerned that maybe it's a strategic win for the Israelis to do this, but I'm also concerned about this wider conflict gaining momentum.
It's a huge concern. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'm surprised they haven't accepted responsibility or said that they were behind this yet, because it seems like a lot of people are supportive of a targeted pinpoint attack like this. I talked to John Rothman on the show this week, and he was very supportive of it.
Yeah, I don't. You're talking about the targeting of this leader that they just took out, or you're
talking about the pager attacks,
the pager
and the
attack.
walkie-talkie attacks.
Well,
yeah.
the pager and walkie-talkie attack. I mean, I don't see any reason that they wouldn't take responsibility, as you say, but there must be a reason. I can argue both sides of this, but I mean, the pager attack had strategically for the Israelis a genius behind it. I mean, it really did. Largely a technology being used by Hezbollah operatives. And even as I say that, I understand that there were others who might not have been pure Hezbollah, badge-carrying Hezbollah, card-carrying Hezbollah members who were hurt in these explosions. But it was a message sent by the Israelis to sort of say, hey, we're reading your mail. Don't mess with us. So if you look at it that way, I saw it. I mean, again, it's all ugly in the Middle East. It's all ugly. Okay, so, you only wish, well, we could get the parties to sit down and they could talk without these hostilities. And sadly, at this point, that's not there. I really do feel as though the great concern, for me anyway, is the increased spillover now into Lebanon by not only the pagers, not only the communication devices, the walkie-talkies, but now this act to take out this Hezbollah operative. We'll see, but it's definitely of concern on this Friday.
Early voting starting in 3 states today. Voters in Minnesota, South Dakota, and Virginia are now able to cast their ballots. Vice President Harris, former President Trump will both be on the campaign trail today. Harris holding rallies in 2 key swing states, Georgia and Wisconsin. Trump attending a fundraiser in Miami. As mentioned earlier here on the Mark Thompson Show, ballots in Georgia will now have to be counted by hand. Critics are worried after Georgia's election board approved a new rule by a 3-2 vote that could delay the reporting of election results. Critics say the 3 board members who supported the rule are Trump allies who have vocally supported him in the past. Legal challenges to this are expected. As a matter of fact, the Attorney General for the state of Georgia told them not to do this. He said, this is not going to work for you. This is illegal. And yet they've done it anyway. Speaking of elections, California election offices are being told to take precautions before they handle any mail. This warning coming from the Secretary of State, Shirley Weber, after a suspicious package arrived at her headquarters in Sacramento yesterday. It triggered everyone inside and nearby to evacuate. Weber says the powder inside tested positive for unbleached flour. It might be tied to similar packages sent to election officials in at least 15 other states as people try to disrupt or send some type of message here.
Now, unbleached flour is of no real danger. Am I right, Kim? I'm not a...
No, but it'll sure clear out a building in a hurry.
Okay.
You don't know what it is. It takes a while to test that,
of course.
right?
And it's I was going to use the word despicable. I guess I will. I mean, it's so loathsome to go after people who are oftentimes volunteers. There is not money. It's not the big money world of working, for an election, trying to get things together. Working in public service is not a big money move. And unless you do it like Senator Menendez does it. And I will, or Rick Scott, or Rick Scott in Florida. But what I would say is that, to add to the fact that there's essentially no money. A lot of people are volunteers. You add a danger to this, and it's an intimidation of poll workers. It's disgusting. It's just awful.
Well, and why would you want to scare people like that? I don't understand. Why you want to do that to people?
If you don't want the vote, if you have an interest in screwing up the vote, in creating controversy around a vote, and the GOP does, that's their game plan. We're going to mess with the vote to the point that there are questions about it, and then we will contest the vote in court. And if that's your plan, then you want to do everything you can to disrupt it. You also want to disrupt official institutions like this. This is the official institutional aspect of voting is not working for the GOP. They will be voted out in many different races, across many different states, across many different offices, including the presidency. They know that. And so now the effort is, let's mess with these institutions that are charged with organizing the vote and counting the vote. That's why this stuff happens.
You mentioned this earlier. This is the judge that was shot, a Kentucky sheriff accused in this killing of a district judge in chambers after a heated argument. Kentucky State Police said in a news conference last night, District Judge Kevin Mullins was found dead, multiple gunshot wounds, Thursday afternoon at the Letcher County Courthouse in Whitesburg, Kentucky. A police investigation claims Letcher County Sheriff Sean Steins shot Mullins after an argument inside the judge's chambers. Steins turned himself in after the shooting. He was arrested without incident. And that's what we know. A sad situation in Kentucky.
So we just don't have we have no motive yet.
No, we don't know why. In San Diego, the city is still trying to gather rent from SeaWorld that dates back to the pandemic. Lawyers say they can't even get SeaWorld to respond to legal requests. SeaWorld San Diego owes the city $12 million in back rent, late fees, and interest. SeaWorld's parent company just lost a similar case in Florida. The San Diego Union Tribune reporting SeaWorld will still have to pay nearly $10 million in back licensing fees for the Sesame Workshop. In both situations, rent and fees had been deferred during the lockdown for COVID, and SeaWorld just hasn't caught up. It would not upset me to see SeaWorld fold completely. Bye-bye.
Of course, it's a cruel setup to have these highly evolved creatures doing tricks for us.
Horrible.
The whole thing is despicable, and then they are housed in tanks that are the equivalent of a bathtub. Imagine spending your whole life in something the size of a bathtub. It's awful. And I think people are getting hip to that, which is one of the reasons they don't quite have the crowds they used to. And obviously they suffered setbacks, as you said in that story, during COVID. So anyway, I wish those great, majestic creatures had a better life.
There is a multi-agency environmental cleanup underway after a burning luxury yacht sank in Marina del Rey. This is a 100-foot-long multi-level yacht, or it was, anchored in the harbor. It sank after burning for several hours last night, or Wednesday night rather. It had fireworks and at least 1,000 rounds of ammunition on board. No wonder it went up in flames. A Coast Guard incident management team is monitoring the cleanup now, which includes recovering discharged fuel in Marina del Rey. The yacht had a fuel capacity of 6,000 gallons. It's unclear how much fuel was aboard. The Oiled Wildlife Care Network is also on standby. No oiled wildlife has been seen in that area so far, but that was quite a spectacular blaze.
Wow.
What can you tell us about the scene?
It's pretty ugly, Larry. A lot of fireworks and.
What can you tell us about the scene?
It's ugly fireworks and fire, Larry, and a super yacht.
There's a new step underway to put more driverless cars on Bay Area streets. Cruise wants to resume its robo-taxi service after state regulators pulled the fleet nearly a year ago. That means it needs to get permits back. So the company deployed up to 5 vehicles yesterday with drivers to map Sunnyvale and Mountain View. Testing with someone behind the wheel will start in the fall. No word how long it will take until people can actually hail a ride. But here we have Cruise back on the roadways in the Bay Area.
Wow.
After
That's not fake.
Yeah.
That's real.
Yeah. It's I've ridden in the Cruise. You've also ridden the Cruise, right?
Did you ride in the Cruise or the Waymo?
Oh, I think maybe it was Waymo. You're right. Maybe it was Waymo. Yeah. Not in Cruise. Yeah, not in Cruise.
No.
Not in Cruise.
You don't want to get in that one. No.
I don't know about that. Maybe, I don't know how, Why, did Cruise have big problems?
Weren't they the ones that ran over the lady in San Francisco and then?
I mean, aside from that, every time they run over somebody,
then tried to cover it up and not give information to the DMV.
Well, I mean, if you ran somebody over, wouldn't you try to cover it up? I mean, just think it through.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Kim, how are you?
My bad.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Dodgers designated hitter Shohei Ohtani is the first player in Major League Baseball history to join the 50-50 club. He reached 50 home runs and 50 stolen bases in Thursday's 20-4 win in Miami. Ohtani went 6 for 6, hitting 3 homers and stealing 2 bases, drove in 10 runs, became the first player to do so in one game.
There's
in
never
Dodgers
been anything
history.
like this.
Yeah.
50
I
home
wish
runs.
I had his accent.
50 home runs is also the most ever hit by a Dodger in a single season, passing former franchise leader Sean Green. So there you go.
So, Commissioner, this Shohei Ohtani, he's pretty good, huh?
Yeah, he's just a little good, you know. Very impressive.
We try to get him.
Yeah, it's tough to root against him, even though he's a Dodger. But it's I have to. It's just how I was born and raised. But I could acknowledge the talent, and we'll see what happens during playoffs. Because
for those who don't know, this show is born in San Francisco, and then now it's everywhere. But because of that, we have a true allegiance to the Bay Area and the Giants and the Niners, etc. So anyway, the Dodgers, of course, are the vaunted enemies of the Giants, and as a result, I mean, it's one of the great rivalries in sports. So that's why Albert said that stuff about the Dodgers. But this guy Ohtani, and the Giants tried to get Ohtani. I mean, along with a bunch of other teams, but the Giants, I think it was really between the Giants and the Dodgers, and Dodgers won the sweepstakes, and he is just crushing it there. Remarkable.
Yeah, and he's doing this all as just a hitter. People forget he's also a world-class pitcher. So
yeah,
we don't know when he's going to start pitching again, but it's impressive to see from a distance. But boo Dodgers.
50-50. I had not heard that there was a 50-50 club until he managed to pull that off. So there you go. The University of California campuses, they have 10 police departments on these campuses, and they're now getting military equipment. They asked for drones, pepper bullets, sponge rounds, and other non-lethal projectiles after the student protests over the Middle East war turned violent last school year. The UC Board of Regents approved this yesterday, calling it routine and not because of what happened. Many of the tools are said to be replacements for items used in training. So that's happening at University of California campuses. I know we're over time now, but I do want to tell you that drivers across California are able to add their driver's licenses to their iPhones or their Apple Watches. It comes a month after it was allowed on the Google Wallet. The feature can be used at businesses and at TSA checkpoints, such as the Los Angeles and San Francisco airports. The DMV says 650,000 people have already participated in its mobile driver's license program. They expect that number will rise given the demand of Apple products. And coffee, something to think about as the commute begins for the afternoon, the early getaway. What's the best place to find a perfect cup of coffee? Wallet Hub says they have the answer. The company ranks San Francisco the second best city in the nation for coffee. They say residents spend about $300 a year on coffee. I would have thought it would have been a lot more. Wow. 11% own an espresso or cappuccino maker. The other California spot on the top 10 list, Long Beach at number 7. I think this is a travesty. It should have been Coachella Valley, number 1.
Yeah, you're absolutely
number
right.
1.
Well,
I mean, come on. Ridiculous.
Coachella just got the Palm Springs Airport account. So they are the Palm Springs Airport coffee. They've got a whole setup there like Starbucks. Yeah, it's really cool.
Can you imagine if you're walking through an airport and you saw a Coachella Valley coffee stand and they had the vanilla tea there? I mean, I would jump for joy. This would be exciting.
Yeah.
This report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. I'm jumping for joy over the Why Are You Yelling Mark Thompson red wine. It is good. They have so many varietals. They also have events going on this month. In the month of October, the I Love Lucy Grape Stomp is the best time.
Yes.
So much fun. Really, it's something to check off your bucket list. So it's going on Sunday the 22nd. It's going on Sunday, September 29th. They have more events to list in October.
That's not fake. That's real.
No.
You go to the winery about 10 in the morning. You get a mimosa, have a little fun. You go and cut some grapes off of the vines in the vineyard. It's romantic.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
And then you come back, they give you a nice big lunch, and then you take your shoesies off and you get in the tank and boom, boom, you stomp on those grapes. So much fun, and really gets you in the feeling for fall. The space is limited.
I'm excited. You always make it sound so fun.
I imagine
I'm
the
quite
feeling
taken
of
by
the
it.
grapes between your toes, the squishing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is fantastic.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal.
Well, that doesn't sound quite as I'm sure, but it is black and white there as on their website. So it's tenudavineyard.com.
The best part
more
of this
information.
is because you're a Mark Thompson Show viewer or listener, you get 10% off of the Grape Stomp event, of any wine that you want to purchase, anything.
Sure.
All you have to do is say, smash it with your iron rod.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Not just any iron rod, your iron rod.
Yeah, you want somebody else's iron rod involved.
Smash it with your iron rod.
So you say that and you get 10% off?
You say that, you can type it in an email, you can leave it in a voicemail message. When you're ordering your I Love Lucy Grape Stomp tickets, you can call Rich at 925-699-4576. You can email him as well, Rich at tenudavineyard.com. Get your wine, get your stomp on at Tenuda Vineyards in Livermore.
Get your stomp
Be willing to bet
on.
my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
Yeah, it does
Oh,
sound
yes,
like
there
there's
is.
some alcohol.
I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Right on, everybody. By the way, for those who are keeping the hymnal, you would normally turn to the Michael Snyder Culture Blaster page. But Michael Snyder is ill today. We certainly wish him a speedy recovery, but he could not be here. And so we were charged with using his segment as we felt fit, and we did. I just will note that there is, these are kind of some comments that have come in, delay. This is Trump's playbook from Vanessa. My sister, okay, I'll just do this, guys. The Walter Fristow, the GOP will do anything, legal or illegal, ethical or unethical, moral or immoral, to win this election, says Walter. I can't disagree with that. Imagine that. Harris will be declared the winner before Georgia finishes counting. That's exactly right. A reference to the ways in which they're slowing down the count in Georgia. Trump officials, Trump loyalists, essentially have made it such that Georgia will now hand count everything in all the different counties. And it's worse than that. The ways in which the hand counts have to match up make it clear that it's very easy to have to start recounting all over again. It's an amazing fact. And by the way, last thing I didn't say, and I want to hear what you say, Kim, but, the idea of a hand count isn't outrageous, but generally it starts with a machine count, and then if there's some kind of irregularity, then you go to a hand count. So it's not as though a hand count makes no sense. It's just that the machine count is generally where you start. So, sorry, Kim, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say, look at all the things they're doing, trying to purge the voter rolls, trying to get the certification of votes to be delayed, trying to delay the vote by the hand counting. And then at the end of all this, with all this tricky, sneaky, underhanded dealing they're trying to do, they'll accuse everyone else of cheating, right?
Right. Thank you. That's
it's
so well
wild.
put. Yeah. So we'll hear the results of the Georgia vote in 2029, says Uncle Russ. Brian says, at the golf course, no one got within a quarter of a mile from Donald J. Trump with a firearm. That's how it's supposed to work. He's saying, hey, look, you keep talking, you just generally, the general you, people keep talking about the fact that the Secret Service needs to do a better job. He's saying they did their job. That's the way it's supposed to work. Kathleen with a $20 super chat. Listening since KGO owns, since KGO was listening as you were shut down.
Right.
Such a trauma to me and my spouse.
I'm sorry, Kathleen.
Yeah, I'm so glad you found us, though, Kathleen.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. And where's my big shout out, Albert? The one that people object to. The
Big shout out.
Big shout out. Thank you. And appreciate so much throwing us $20 going into the weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And no contendo says easier to protect 45 indoors, but he owes too many cities too much money. Cities won't rent him facilities. So 45 is forced to flat rural farmlands, sniper's paradise. More copycats will come for fame.
Oh, no.
Thank you, No Contendo, $10 super chat. I would say this, though, No Contendo. I'm not sure. I mean, I think you're right that Trump's people and Trump himself tends to stiff venue owners and certainly municipalities and localities. There's no question about it. I think he still owes Washington, D.C. millions of dollars. But the all the arithmetic you do there, I don't know if I could see all of it happening. I mean, I certainly hope it doesn't. I think that security will be stepped up, and they do cheat toward indoor venues, and he was just at an indoor venue, so I'm not so sure that he's not going to still find other indoor venues. But as usual, you have provocative info. Maybe that's right. No Contendo. I don't know. Lori Dolly throws us 15. Hope a bit of extra cash will help. Yeah.
Thanks, Lori.
Sure will.
Big shout out.
Big shout out. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lori. We love you. We know you from the meetups, and we love you. Wes, of course, $5 super chat. Regarding the shooter, Trump was never in his sights, and he never fired a shot. Can they easily prove it was a plot to shoot Trump? Without a doubt, asks Wes with a $5 super chat. Yeah, I think they can still prove it. I mean, if you show up and you point your AK through the
fence?
Through the fence and through the brush. I'll put it this way. The story is getting pretty thin, whatever story you have. I mean, it seems as though you're there for a purpose. Here's two Shohei's 50-50. Go Dodgers. Sorry, Commish.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to Luis. He's a Southern Californian kid. Michael Snyder, get well soon, says Judy. Not the votes, the wine grapes. I don't know what that's in relation to, but it's funny.
Something there, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Very, very cool. I love all the contributions, and I love all the ways you communicate with us. So thank you so much.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Albert, unless you have something else for me, we've got to wrap up. I don't want to do it, but we must. We'll be back in our respective places, back in the main studio on Monday, and we have a big week ahead. I've got an author, I think, is coming in who's got a new book, a politically related book for next week. Also, David K. Johnston back and all the regulars. Albert, do you have anything else for me, or are we good? Am I up to speed?
We are up to speed. Good show.
All right.
Great show.
As we finish, I will. You'll roll the music, and I will just note Elaine is a new Patreon member, and I want to say thank you, Elaine, and a big shout out to you.
Big shout out.
And Jim Slayton, who is a regular on the show, just edited his Patreon membership from $15 a month to $25 a month. Wow. Big shout out to Jim. Yeah, that's really, really cool.
Nice.
Amy B just became a Patreon member at $10 a month. Thank you, Amy B. Big shout out. And Gary is always talking to me on Patreon. I appreciate that, Gary, and all of you who are Patreon members. More time to acknowledge more of you next week. I just so appreciate, and we so desperately need your support, so thank you. Kim is coming up with the After Party Live, and Shadow takes us out.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye-bye.
We'll see you on Monday. Until then, bye-bye.